On today's episode, we're going to tell you 10 things that tourists are commonly told not to do in Ireland.
And stick around for number one. It's one of the biggest items that Americans were told not to do. Before we headed to Ireland, we watched countless YouTube videos, read books, blogs, and they were all directed at Americans. Many of these had lists of do's and don'ts for the first-time American travelers to Ireland. Some were solid advice, and others were a little questionable.
So we've distilled them down and are weighing in on whether or not they hold water based on our personal experiences and comments from our viewers. So let's get right into it. Number 10. Don't call March 17th St. Patty's Day. You can call it St. Pat's Day, St. Patrick's Day, or St. Paddy's Day. Paddy is short for Pádraig, which is the Irish version of Patrick. It's not like Peppermint Patty, the Charlie Brown character. It's not like York Peppermint Patty, the delicious little minty chocolate treat. It's Paddy. P-A-D-D-Y. This may not make much difference, especially if you're not going during that time of year. But if you are, it's likely to honk off some of your new Irish friends. So just don't do it. It's pretty good advice, but you probably won't need it.
Number 9. Don't think Irish food is bad or bland. The traditional Irish food is a great example of comfort food. Most of the traditional food is all local. It's all handmade, simple spices and simple gravies and sauces, and I think it's quite wonderful. Now, there are other options, especially in the bigger cities where you can get spicier fare, like maybe Thai or maybe even Mexican and Indian, of course.
Even in some of the farther out cities, Dungarvan in County Waterford, Westport in County Mayo, or Lisdoonvarna in County Clare, were all on the Irish Examiner's list of the 20 top food cities in Ireland. And we'll link to that list down below, so have a good time exploring those. We do think that's good advice to not believe what people say about Irish food not being good. We thought it was very good.
No, it's all excellent. And you do have other options. Number 8, don't rent a car for your time in Dublin. Dublin's a very walkable city and it has many forms of public transportation. Just like any major city, parking may be difficult to find and it will probably be expensive. If part of your plan includes leaving Dublin to see other parts of Ireland by driving, don't pick up the car until the day you leave. It'll save you a lot of headaches.
Number 7, don't just visit Dublin. We heard about a number of Americans who come to Ireland and they only come to Dublin City. We could not fathom that, especially after having traveled through Ireland. Dublin is a wonderful city and there's a lot to see and do there, but you're missing out on a tremendous amount of things if you only stay in Dublin. Ireland has a huge diversity of landscape throughout the island, and you would really be better served by getting out of Dublin some. Now, we would advise renting a car and driving, but maybe that's not for you, or maybe you don't really have that much time. If not, there's public transit. You can take trains out to the west to Galway, you can take them to the south or north, you can take buses. There are lots of ways to get around. If you don't want to take public transit, there are a huge number of day bus trips that you can take from Dublin to Belfast, to the Giant's Causeway, out to Galway, to Connemara, down south to Waterford and Wexford. You can even take a bus that will take you all the way to the Ring of Kerry and around the Ring of Kerry and back to Dublin. That's a 15-and-a-half-hour day, but you can do it. So don't just stay in Dublin. And we do think that this is excellent advice.
Yes.
Number 6. Don't go without some basic knowledge of geography and history of the island. Now, this was one that we added ourselves based on our experiences and things that our viewers told us. Ireland is actually a large landmass island, but the island is 2 separate countries. 84% of the landmass is actually the Republic of Ireland, which is a sovereign country. It has 63% of the population of the island. It is a member of the European Union, and 84% of their population is Roman Catholic. Their unit of currency is the euro. The northern part, 16% of the landmass, is the country of Northern Ireland, which is part of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. They contain 37% of the population of the island, and their monetary unit is the pound sterling. Northern Ireland is pretty evenly split between Catholic and Protestant now, although originally when the island was split into two, it was predominantly Protestant. There's a rather contentious history in Ireland between Ireland and Great Britain, and it centers around religion and nationalism. The Republic of Ireland's independence was hard fought and won from Great Britain over many years, and it involved a war of independence as well as a civil war, a period of sectarian violence lasting from the late 1960s to the late 1990s, known as the Troubles. And although things are much calmer now, the old wounds do run very deep, and there's generational bitterness that remains. Do your homework before you go so you don't end up sticking your foot in your mouth.
Number 5, don't injure yourself in old ruins or old buildings. Visiting centuries-old site is great fun, but pay attention to where you're walking. Footpaths can be irregular, steps can vary in height and depth. Then, of course, you have spiral staircases. Have you ever been up in an old lighthouse? Kind of tricky sometimes. Also, watch out for lower door headers or ceilings in older buildings. Even in rehab buildings where they rent rooms or apartments. Just keep your eyes open and don't hurt yourself and ruin your trip.
And this was something that we had never really heard voiced, but we found from experience that it was really good advice. I took a little bit of a trip doing a 360 view of a tower at the Cliffs of Moher. As a result, had some problems hiking later that week in Mount Errigal.
And I conked my head on a sloped ceiling wall. So keep your eyes open.
Do watch where you step, and we think this is also good advice. Number 4, don't just take American Express. It's not widely accepted in Ireland. However, Visa and MasterCard, both credit and debit cards, are accepted. Also, cash is accepted. But remember what we said about if you're going to Northern Ireland, you're going to need pounds sterling, and in the Republic of Ireland, you'll be using euros. There were some things that we did need cash for: parking, a few street vendors for food, and some really small little shops in smaller towns. We also needed cash for the buses in Galway, so there are times when you're going to need cash. We thought this was very good advice.
Number 3, don't ignore laws regarding alcohol. First one is don't drink in public. This doesn't mean you have to stay in your room or stay in the lobby of the hotel. What it does mean is you have to stay within the property or confines of the pub or place that you're drinking and not take it out on the sidewalk or to the park or anything like that. Second, don't drink and drive. BAC limits are tighter in Ireland than in the U.S. We've heard of random pullovers, random stops to check people. You just don't want to get caught with that.
That could really ruin your trip. We met a gentleman in the airport, in fact, who had just gotten out of jail. He was an American. He had been to a wedding and was drinking and was driving back to his hotel and was pulled over, and he just barely got out of jail in time to make his flight back to the States. So if that isn't good advice, I don't know what is.
And to celebrate, he was getting a beer before he got on the plane to fly home.
But it's a long flight, so we think he was probably okay there. Number 2, don't order an Irish car bomb or a black and tan. Now, we had read in almost every list of don'ts, don't order an Irish car bomb. And so we thought, okay, that's pretty commonly known if you read anything about going to Ireland. However, our very first day in Ireland, we were at the Jameson Experience in Dublin and saw this misstep committed by one of our fellow Americans.
During a portion of the tasting and descriptions of the different Jameson whiskeys, the guide was asking people in the room, what would you make with it? And the second person that he asked proudly said, I'd make an Irish car bomb. And I looked at Karen and I looked at him, but the guide was great. He just blew right by that and didn't make a big deal of it. But it certainly was embarrassing. I couldn't believe it.
I told Chris I was going to tell people I was from Canada after that.
Or any other country other than the U.S.
Right, right. In case you didn't know, during the Troubles, there were a large number of people, over 400 people, killed by bombs. Ordering an Irish car bomb is kind of the equivalent of ordering a drink in the U.S. called the Flaming Twin Towers. So just don't do it. One of our favorite Irish YouTubers, Diane Jennings, suggests if you have to order something with a bomb, order a Jaeger bomb. Or I'm told that you can order an Irish slammer, and that will get you the same basic drink, but with a less offensive name. Now, as far as a black and tan goes, black and tan were the colors of the British troops that were sent into Ireland to perpetrate violence on the people. So it's considered very offensive to order that. If you want a drink with light and dark beer mix, you could order a half and half. And now, number 1.
Drum roll, please.
Number 1, don't talk politics or religion. We were told not to bring up these subjects based on several columns or lists of don'ts. But with the nature of American politics, questions always seem to come up. Several times the conversation would turn to Ireland's history, and that's when it was a good time for us just to listen.
So we would say that it's not necessarily don't talk politics and religion, but be respectful and sensitive and ask tactful questions if it seems okay. We would change that to don't bring up the topic of politics and religion, but be willing to learn something from the Irish people if you have the opportunity.
I agree with that. We had some great conversations with people, and they were very open and honest and sincere, and a lot of it was very eye-opening.
It was very heartfelt on their part.
Oh, yeah.
It was a big education for us.
I don't want to say don't talk politics and religion, but don't start off a conversation with it. Kind of feel the room and see what people want to talk about. It may turn to that, it may not, but just always be respectful.
So, if you're traveling to Ireland, what are your concerns about what you should and shouldn't do?
And if you're Irish, what's your take on this list? Boy, I'm sure we'll hear about that. Is there anything you'd add or something you disagree with? Just let us know in the comments.
We know you will. So if you're an American or a Canadian heading over for a trip to Ireland and you're planning on making it a road trip, take a look at one of our videos on driving in Ireland.
And if you're from Ireland or elsewhere and you've wondered what it's like where we're from in the beautiful state of Indiana, check out this episode on one of our biggest festivals.
And we'll see you next time on this second half adventure. Bye.
Thank you.